Hi everyone, my name is Cantor Rosalie Will. Welcome to StoryTime on JKids Radio. I'm going to be telling you the story of the cracked pot. One day in a village, there was a water carrier, and every morning this water carrier would get up and he would put a pole across his neck and hang an empty bucket on either side. And he would go down into the valley and up over the next hill and down into the valley and up over the hill and down into the valley until he got to the water. And then he would take each bucket, fill it with water, hang it back on the end of the pole, other bucket, fill it with water, hang it at the end of the pole, and walk very carefully down through the valleys, over the hills, down through the valleys, back to the village to bring water to everyone in the village. And this water carrier was doing what his father had done and his father before him for many, many years. Each morning that the water carrier got up and put the pole across his neck and put the two empty buckets on the end and walked over the hills and into the valleys and over the hills to fill each one with water and carry it back, there was a small problem. One of the buckets had a crack. But every day the water carrier would put the pole on his neck and put the empty buckets on either side and go down and up and down and up and get to the water and fill the cracked bucket with water, hang it on the end, take the other bucket, fill it with water, hang it on the end, and walk very carefully back to the village. But one was always half empty. Well, one day the cracked bucket felt so badly. Every time they got back to the village, the bucket was half empty. The bucket on the other end was perfectly full, never dropped a single drop, was perfect as a bucket. The cracked bucket felt so badly about all the water that he was losing that one day he decided he had to say something. He said, water carrier, I don't know if you've noticed, but I have a crack. I'm no good. I'm broken. I have this crack in my bucket, which means I leak water, and I don't think you want a cracked bucket. The water carrier says, don't worry. And the next morning he gets up, he puts the pole across his neck, takes the two empty buckets, goes down the valleys, over the hills, down the valleys, over the hills, till he gets to the water, takes each bucket, fills it with water, puts it on the end, other bucket, fills it with water, puts it on the end, and walks very carefully back to the village. And the cracked bucket is indeed losing water. Again, the cracked bucket says, water carrier, look at the other bucket on the other side. That bucket hasn't dropped a single drop of water. It's perfect. Yes, the perfect bucket does think it is rather perfect. The cracked bucket says, I don't know, water carrier. Maybe you should get rid of me. Water carrier says, don't worry. The next morning, water carrier gets up, puts the pole across his neck, takes the two empty buckets, goes down the valleys, over the hills, down the valleys to the water source, takes the cracked bucket, fills it with water, puts it on the end, takes the full perfect bucket, fills it with water, puts it on the end, and begins to walk back. But this time along the way, as the water carrier is walking, the water carrier says to the full, perfect, not a dropping bucket, and says, hey, full bucket, what do you see when you look over the side of the bucket? The bucket looks over down, says, I just see a lot of dirt on the side of the road, just lots of dirt. Okay, the water carrier says, hey, cracked bucket, look over the side of you. What do you see down below your bucket? Cracked bucket looks over down the side and says, well, water carrier, I see flowers, rows and rows of flowers, all underneath me and all along the road. The water carrier says, cracked bucket, I always knew you had a crack. The very first time I took you out and I saw that little bits of water were dripping out of your crack, I had an idea. That night, I went back out along the path we take, on the side that I knew you'd be returning with water, and I planted seeds. So every time after I put the pole across my neck and take the two empty buckets down the valleys, over the hills, down the valleys, over the hills to the water and fill you up with water, and we begin to walk back, the drips through your cracks watered those seeds, and all of these beautiful flowers grew. And every Friday afternoon, I come out and I cut some of those flowers down and I bring them to all of the friends and the families in the village so they can have beautiful flowers on their Shabbat table. Your cracks, what you think are broken, was really a gift. You brought beauty and life and joy to so many people. Sometimes it feels like our cracks or the things we don't do well or the things we wish we could do like other people could do, they make us feel badly. But lots of times those cracks, those things that are different are actually special gifts and they make us unique. And like the cracked bucket, they actually become what helps bring joy and life and beauty to the world. So celebrate those cracks.